In Heartland Season 17, Episode 6, at the tournament, Jack and Lisa show that they can be daring. Ellie and Brandon push Katie too far. Amy has a heartbreaking run-in with an old friend, and Katie stands up for herself. Amy practiced one final time before loading the horse trailer at the beginning of the episode. She was a little hesitant to leave because she didn't want to spend the entire weekend away from Lindy, and because she was a little nervous about not knowing anyone at the competition. When she said this to Caleb, who had traveled to Heartland to wish Amy luck, he advised her to text or contact him if she became bored in Braeburn, because he wasn't with Carson that weekend and could accompany her. She felt a little better about the situation after seeing Caleb's gesture, so she took his offer to heart and headed out. However, it didn't take long for one of her truck's tires to blow, leaving her stranded on the side of the road without all the necessary gear to fix it. Fortunately, Nathan Price offered Amy a ride when he happened to drive by on his way to the same tournament. After that, they put Blue in Nathan's trailer and made the uncomfortable trip to Braeburn. Amy was initially hesitant to attend the competitors' reception that evening at the arena, especially after Nathan informed her that his firm, Price Family Beef, was sponsoring the event. However, when Amy's TV in her room at the Ranchland Inn broke, she was left bored and pining for her kid. She made the decision to attend the party when Caleb persuaded her to do so over the phone. But in the end, that proved to be a bad decision. Amy felt very alone at the gathering after she arrived. And there, flirting with a bunch of women, was Nathan Price, the only person she knew. At the bar, she ordered a drink of water and tried to think of what to do next. Even their brief and uncomfortable conversation ended when Nathan came to speak with her. Amy then was covered in red wine after running into a server who was carrying glasses of the beverage as she turned to go socialize. She decided to go since she had had enough of being a clown. However, Caleb, who had come to the party to keep Amy company, ran into her as she was leaving. Since Amy's entire day had been quite bad, Caleb drove her back to the hotel, shimmied through her window because she had also forgotten the room's keys, and went inside to hang out. After talking and eating pizza, Caleb gave Amy a kiss, clearly taking Amy by surprise. Caleb apologized before turning to walk away. The unpleasant situation was exacerbated when Nathan went to check on Amy at her door immediately following the kiss and discovered Caleb in her room. Amy performed below average in the reamwork portion of the competition. She was out of rhythm with Blue before the competition even began, and in the reading event, she nearly lost her balance. Amy appeared a little agitated even after she had reamed, especially since Caleb was attempting to contact her. Surprisingly though, Nathan was the one who helped Amy come to her senses. Before the cattle labor portion of the competition, he stopped to speak with Amy and provided her some helpful tips. Thus, Amy was able to achieve her goal of tiring out the cow by following Nathan's instructions. She performed incredibly well at the cow work event, earning 76 points, 1 point more than Nathan, to take first place in the cow work division. And Jack was proud of both of them, especially after learning that Amy had defeated Nathan Price, even if he was more curious in Blue's performance in the tournament than Amy was when she arrived home. Heartland Season 17, Episode 6 showed the emergence of Amy and Nathan's fledgling friendship, which was entertaining to watch. On their way home, despite their initial awkwardness, it seemed like they had a great rapport and had improved their understanding of one another. It will be intriguing to watch where this goes, then. Upon arriving at the hotel, Caleb planted a kiss on Amy. It sounded quite seductive. However, I believe Amy was simply being truthful with Caleb. She said such things in a lighthearted, non-romantic manner, since he is one of her closest friends after all. Naturally, Caleb was embarrassed by the kiss, especially because Amy had turned down his advances. After an uncomfortable farewell, Caleb hurried off, and the following day they were both in a bad mood. Caleb was changing a tire at Amy's truck when Nathan dropped her off on the way home. Additionally, he appeared quite anxious about Amy's reaction to his presence when she approached because Amy had been evading his calls all day. Amy explained to Caleb that she hadn't answered the phone because she'd been thinking about what had transpired between them and wasn't sure what to say. However, Caleb intervened, asserting that the kiss had been an error and that there really wasn't much else to say. For Amy, though, it had the opposite effect. She didn't feel like anything was resolved and wasn't sure where they stood with each other. Thankfully, Caleb also appeared to acknowledge that things weren't quite right between them during their most recent chat. He then invited Amy to meet him at the pond and at last told her the truth about how he really felt, the reason the kiss occurred, and their future plans. That said, I must admit that I find it a little depressing that Amy and Caleb's relationship appears to be limited to a close friendship. Well, I understand that Amy isn't feeling the same way. Additionally, as Amy mentioned, Caleb had gone through so much lately that it's possible that his love for Amy developed simply because Amy supported him during the worst of it. However, I still believe that if their emotions had been the same, they would have been a wonderful relationship. You think a woman may dream? An additional plot point that persisted from the previous episode was Lisa's ex-husband Dan Hartfield's death. This week, Lisa seemed to be all about reminding people that life is short and that you should enjoy it to the fullest. Unlike the previous episode when Lisa was still deciding how she felt about everything and whether or not to go to the funeral. However, this was not only triggered by Dan's death and the funeral. Lisa had written something in her notepad at the start of the episode, and it turned out that Dan's family had asked her to speak at the burial. After all, Lisa had a long and meaningful relationship with Dan and is full of positive memories of him. Which narrative did Lisa decide to tell at the funeral? One recounts how Dan had pushed Lisa into going off-route their first time skiing and how they ended up getting completely lost. They might have frozen to death, but fortunately the rescue team arrived and saved them before nightfall. Though Lisa felt like biting Dan's head off for putting them in that predicament at the time, she now looks back on it and remembers it as an exciting, carefree period of their life filled with adventure. Something that, between managing their businesses and taking care of their family, Lisa and Jack don't really have much time for these days. Lisa made the decision to fix that and bring some adventure back into their life following the funeral. Initially, she persuaded Jack to eat lunch outside rather than reheating leftovers at home. And then, during their supper at the pub, a song that they both loved began to play, and Lisa coaxed a hesitant Jack onto the dance floor. While they were dancing, though, Jack saw something interesting. In the case next to the dance floor, there was an all-around cowboy buckle that he had won in the 1967 Ponoka Stampede. Jack said that he had to sell it a long time ago, since he and Lindy had been low on money when Lisa questioned him about why it was there, and ever then he has regretted it. They so tracked down the facility's manager, who also happened to be the pub's owner, and requested to be able to repurchase the buckle at a price that would be reasonable given its market value. But as Devin, the proprietor, put it, a buckle from Ponoka can't get any kid share than that, so he told them it wasn't for sale. It was then that Lisa got an idea. When Jack and Lisa went up to Devin, they noticed that he was playing pool, so Lisa decided to ask if he would play Jack for it. The bet was that if Devin prevailed, Jack and Lisa would give him $500, the value of the buckle. On the other hand, if Jack prevailed, Devin would give them the buckle. Lisa made a small wager, which both guys grudgingly accepted, and the game began. Regretfully, Jack lost the game right before the end. Sincere as he is, Jack gave Devin his $500 and turned to go when Lisa interrupted, saying she wanted to play the winner. She even increased the stakes by wagering $1,000. Naturally, Jack objected, but Lisa appeared committed to making this bet. Furthermore, Devin was unable to refuse $1,000, particularly considering that he believed Lisa to have played pool quite infrequently. He even allowed Lisa to break first, not wanting to be a total loser, and to ease Lisa's transition. However, it seems it was a mistake, because Lisa didn't stop striking balls till she had won once she got going. Devin came to the realization that Lisa had conned him, but as justice is justice, Jack and Lisa exited the bar holding Jack's buckle. Lisa revealed that Dan had taught her how to shoot pool when Jack, who was equally as shocked by Lisa's skill as Devon, questioned where she had learned. It turns out that when their horse lost a race, Lisa and Dan utilized pool as a way to decompress when they first started dating. And their horse had lost a lot in the early going. As a result, Lisa had developed into a real pool shark. Thus, the two were very happy to return home. In this episode, Katie also had a significant anecdote that demonstrated her true abilities. At the start of the episode, Katie cranked up her dirt bike and headed to meet Brandon and Ellie, two of her friends. It was questionable if Ellie should be her friend because, for the entire episode, she appeared to irritate Katie. As soon as Brandon was happy to see Katie and complimented her that she'd done a fantastic job cleaning it up, Ellie made a comment about how old Katie's bike is. When Katie refused to jump over a little creek in the woods the following day, Ellie dubbed her a coward while the three of them were out riding their dirt bikes. Just before, Brandon had leaped and cleared it without any issues, but Katie, a novice rider, wasn't so confident in her abilities. Nevertheless, Katie chose to give it a shot after Ellie encouraged her to in order to demonstrate her lack of fear. Fortunately, Katie appeared to realize her mistake right before the jump's edge and stopped her bike just in time to avoid falling over. Although Ellie had labeled Katie's attempt pathetic, it didn't help that she was still embarrassed that she hadn't done it. Katie rode off without saying anything. Later that day, to Katie's surprise, Ellie and Brandon visited Heartland to see how she was doing. And despite Katie telling them that Ellie didn't seek for permission to host guests, Ellie essentially welcomed herself and Brandon inside. They even succeeded in having a respectable time. They sat down to lunch, which Ellie had prepared. Ellie, however, went and spoiled it by removing a bottle of whiskey from Jack's bar cabinet and suggesting that they drink it. That was the last straw for Katie, and she got up and urged Ellie to stop and go before she could pour any more whiskey into a glass. Seeing Katie advocate for herself was fantastic, and although she felt that by forcing them to go, especially when Ellie called Katie a moron as they were leaving, she had destroyed their friendship, Brandon shocked Katie by returning and expressing regret for what Ellie had done. Katie's friendship with Parker fizzled away, and all she wanted was to develop some new ones. It appears that she succeeded in gaining at least one new buddy in Brandon, especially after telling Katie that he didn't defend her to Ellie earlier because he felt he had to maintain his reputation as a risk-taker, which included drinking alcohol illegally when Ellie wanted to open the whiskey bottle. In other words, he thought Katie was great just the way she was. Hearing Nathan's perspective on the conflict between the Price family beef and the Heartland beef was interesting. Nathan admitted to Amy that it was all business and not very personal during the drive to the competition. On their walk back, he went on to explain that, in his opinion, factory farms were the true competitors, not Jack and Tim. Furthermore, he believes that if family-run ranches, like his and others, that follow the correct procedures wish to compete with the big boys, they should truly band together. Nathan also acknowledged that having nearly bankrupted his firm due to the marketing effort, he had spent a great deal of money on the billboards we saw in episode 1. All he could do was hope that they paid off and helped get his company noticed. Through these exchanges, Nathan was somewhat discredited, and it became clear that he was only trying to grow his business and wasn't buying Sam's farm or that bull out of retaliation.